Andy Liu. What is up, my man?
First off-season show. We're back.
I feel good. I've been waiting for this for so long. I know that sounds weird, but I just didn't feel good all season about the team. I had to keep the possibility that they could do something that made no sense and make a run, just because it's Steph, it's Draymond, it's like they've done it before, but like nothing about this year made me think I was seeing signs of a real team. And I wanted to get into a bunch of this offseason stuff, but I was like, nah, what is the fucking point on February 23rd to talk about it, right? Like, let's see what they can do, and then we'll go to now we can do it. The post-mortem is here. It is officially time. Hopefully they can be serious next year, which is really the only goal I have. Just please be serious again.
Yeah, I don't even care if you win. Just be serious. Hey, before we dive into the fun stuff, I know I ended the last show saying this, but people don't usually make it an hour and a half into the show. So we'll start the show off with subscribe, rate 5 stars, click download, all that fun stuff. We've got a new sponsorship, new collab, new shirts with Free Bread. Our guy A Loud, check it out on the podcast link. You can find us wherever, and yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun off season. It's gonna be a weird off season. The friend of the show really kills me. It's really one of the it's like our tagline at this point, and I didn't come up with that shirt, but it's so freaking cool. It's so freaking cool.
Yeah, we gotta give Free Bread shout out for being the sponsor here. These shirts are a limited order. You have maybe another week to put an order, and then they go out for shipping after that. So if you want to support, appreciate it. Free Bread and its initiatives are always looking for ways to give back to younger generation and futures leaders. A portion of all proceeds will be donated to furthering youth education in the Bay Area and beyond. We're not making money off of this. These are printed locally. They're printed on local labor, and everything we make off of it's going to go back to charity causes. So by all means, if you want to support, we appreciate it. If it's a little too steep for you, we appreciate you listening too. No judgment. But anyway, just want to shout that out there. Shout out Free Bread. Yeah, right. Okay. So I think my favorite part of when a season ends, I don't want to say favorite part, but like a lot of people write pieces telling you stuff they've been holding on to for a while, right? And so I don't want to get into any specific ones, but all of them had a specific tone. A lot of commentary about how the season never really got going because of the punch. The punch, wherever you land on it, basically encapsulated the idea that the 2-timeline plan, it doesn't work like that. You don't get your cake. You don't get the cake and eat it too. You either are in or you're playing for the future, but you can't do two things at one time. Too many competing agendas, And, I don't think it's a new thing in the NBA. It's a disease of more. It's a thing that's happened for eternity in the NBA. You win a title. Someone who's a third option feels like it's time for them to be the second option. Someone who's a bench player thinks it's their time to be a star. Someone who maybe played poorly thinks they still got it because he got bailed out. That sort of stuff. Disease of more happens. So I think the most important thing going into the offseason is how do you get beyond this? Because we know Steph is still that dude. This roster doesn't work. But I think I speak for both of us when I say the door is not shut. There's just work to do to get back to where you need to get to.
I also don't know what the right move is, right? I think, a lot of times the right move is just getting Kevin Durant. Cool. And you come off of Harrison Barnes. It's like pretty easy. That's the right move, right?
Yeah. Don't need to be a genius to see that one.
No. And I'm watching the Philadelphia Sixers choke away a 3-2 lead, and you're saying to yourself, well, the right move was
Game James.
Yeah, shout out Big Game Joel. I mean, both those guys might be the kindred spirits, dude. They are both awful in big games. But, like, the right move, I think at the time you can argue was keeping Jimmy Butler, right? I think you knew right then and there, it's like, you need to keep this guy. This is a guy that you probably want to build your team around in terms of leadership. And I think my point is, I don't know what the right move for the Warriors is. You can argue that it's getting rid of Jordan Poole, but you can argue it's also keeping Jordan Poole. You can argue it's trading Draymond Green or letting him walk, but you can also argue it's keeping him. You can argue it's keeping Jonathan Kuminga, or you can argue it's trading him. I think you can say all those things, and I would say to you, like, you might be right. I don't actually have a strong feeling one way or another outside of, just Steph has to be back. I think that's where I land, Sam. Like, Steph obviously has to be on the team. Other than that, you can argue any which way to me, and I don't think I'd fight you on it. I have, like, what I think is the best option, but, like, dude, if you tell me you want Klay out of here, like, I wouldn't be – like, I wouldn't want that, but I think you could make a good point about it. That's why this offseason is so huge.
It really is, because Steph's 35. He looks as good as ever. But be a realist about it. I think he can probably push the limits and maybe play at this level for 4 or 5 more years, which would be absurd. But you can't operate with the idea that you have a 5-year window. You kind of have to operate that it's now. You can't just assume Steph's going to be Tom Brady, even if you think he might be Tom Brady.
Like, or you could do the LeBron, right? Like, in 3 years, LeBron is still in spurts LeBron, but look at how he has to just relax through a conference semifinals, like through 4 games. He
Picking
has to
his spots.
Chill. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be Steph in 3 years.
So on a high level, I agree with you. I think the only thing that's off the table is moving Steph Curry. Shocker. Like, could you convince me that moving off of Klay, keeping Poole, letting him start, and getting whatever you can depth-wise around Klay is the move? It could potentially work. You could also convince me moving Poole is the move. You could also convince me moving both of them is the move, Right. And I'm like, I don't want to focus on that, but, like, the reality is $43 million to Klay next year, 28 to Poole. That's $70+ million to a shooting guard. But no one needs $70 million to shoot.
For what production did the Warriors get? If they got $40 million of production in the second round, the Warriors would have won. They got how many mils of production do you think they got in the second round of those two guys? Maybe like
4 to 6. Yeah. It's what I was going to say is they shot a combined 37% for the entire playoffs. 32 from 3. Wow. Poole didn't shoot the ball well. Klay didn't shoot the ball well outside of like 3 games. They played 13 games and Klay was poor just as much. They have a lot of work to do. And I threw this question out on Twitter because I was thinking about it a little bit. And so might as well talk about it on the pod here. Do the Warriors need to make the big move or the little move? So the big move is we're going to bring in a star caliber player. Doesn't need to be a superstar, doesn't need to be Kevin Durant, but like a guy who's been an all-star outside of the Warriors ecosystem, someone who has some level of name cachet. Or do they need to make the little move, which is look, this bench didn't work. We need to fix that, and everything will come into line if we have a new Otto Porter and that sort of thing. They've responded to disappointing seasons both ways. In 2016, they're like, Kevin Durant, sounds cool to me. And in 2021, when they lost the play-in, they didn't do that. They were like, we kind of like what we have cooking. We just need to get a couple veterans to complete this thing, and we take our chances. So where do you land on this?
Both won a championship, by the way. Yeah. And that's why my answer is going to be, I think it depends on what the moves are, because here's the because the take for me is that I think it depends what the moves are, which isn't interesting. But I do think what's interesting is if they make a big move, they do need to realize they need to find someone that fits the style of play that they have. And I think there are lessons learned for guys like James Wiseman and even Jonathan Kuminga on a lesser level. So, for example, if they want to look at Joel Embiid, it might not be. And again, it's just outside of the fact that it's not going to happen. But that's just not a guy that fits the Warriors, right? So I think if you're looking at a big move, you can't just do a big move just to do a big move. My heart of hearts, Sam, tells me that is keeping Draymond, Klay, trading Jordan Poole, keeping Kuminga, and then adding a bunch of vets. Is that considered a big move, a small move, or is that in the middle? I feel like that's in the middle. I feel like that's the best path forward.
It's probably in the middle to be
because I feel like that one's in the middle, right? That one's kind of not. It's not small, but it's not big. They probably get back.
I guess it depends who you get back. Like if you trade Jordan Poole to Orlando, which is like
the obvious.
Because it's known they liked him. So like maybe you get back a Markelle Fultz or Jonathan Isaac, talented players, but they'll never be stars, right? They're just good role players, right? Like, is that?
I think that would be the best path forward. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think that you create a team that has a lot more depth, more defense, less variance. Like, you're not getting more shooting or anything like that. Like, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of that particular trade.
Fultz isn't going to score 40, but he also probably doesn't have the lows that Jordan Poole has either.
It's a Sean Livingston type, like to a lesser level, Andre Iguodala type of player. It fits the Warriors, but maybe not this hot ceiling. Anyway, I think that would be the best path. I don't know. What do you think? What would be your answer?
So here's my number one concern. They won the title in 2022, and they really didn't have a second option. So I think they had 3 number 3s, if we're being honest. They had, all right, Steph. He's, GOAT, whatever. Like this playoffs, he averaged 31. And people want to, whatever. He's on the short list of guys who could be the first option on a team. Okay, Klay Thompson was inconsistent in the playoffs, but he's still Klay. He can still go for whatever at any time, but he wasn't consistent. Jordan Poole is probably their best offensive player outside of Steph in the 2022 playoffs, but he comes with other limitations. There were games where he didn't play more than 18 minutes or 20 minutes because you can't trust him. But at the same time, he had games where he went like 32, 8, and 8 against Memphis. They don't win Memphis game 1 without Jordan Poole. Like he did have that. And then Wiggins was probably the best of the 3, but he's also the lowest variance on offense. Like he's not explosive. He just does more things. He's the best defender of the bunch. He affects the game in different ways. And so what they really had was Steph and 3 guys who are getting you between 15 to 20 on any given night. It was one of their nights every time. Like some nights it was Wiggins getting 27, some nights it was Klay, some nights it was Poole, but they could manufacture a second option that way, right? So my concern with trading Poole is you're just making your offense even worse. And I think the offense is the bigger issue than the defense versus the Lakers. So that's like really my question.
I don't know. They got open looks. They couldn't defend these guys though. It felt like every game was kind of like and maybe that's a Draymond problem. That might not even be a Poole problem. Now I think the Poole problem is you can't play Steph and Poole at the same time. Like if you can just play Jordan Poole, and you can surround him with defenders like what the Warriors have done with Steph, like I think you can get away with that. But the problem is you have Steph, right?
You didn't think offense was the issue versus the Lakers?
I mean, it was, but they had so many open shots. They just missed them. Yeah. And I think part of them missing them is they were worn down, I guess, one in the sack series, and they were also worn down going up against AD and LeBron and just guys having to defend ISOs, pick and rolls. And I think part of that is, and then you see in the last couple of games, I mean, Klay was missing, but Steph was too. I mean, Steph's legs were completely gone. Part of that is he was carrying the guys, but I don't know. I think I would like to see them shift back towards the Warriors version of let's get a bunch of wings that can defend versus often this season we saw them play Steph, Poole, Dante. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, what is that? Right. Those are like half a defender out of 3 guards? Like it's just hard when you're playing 3-4 guard lineups. It's not the way the Warriors have won.
And that's the other thing. They're like, you know how you get worn down having to play undersized all game, every game. Like you eventually run out of things. So I agree with you. They need more wings. Awesome throws out. I'm pro big move. Don't think 2022 is replicable. No rings are all the same. You can learn lessons, but Klay not being Klay, need change. Nuggets are coming. Yeah, I mean, it depends who's available. Let me ask you this, Andy. If you could get a Pascal Siakam or a Karl Anthony Towns, how do you feel about either of those two?
I was waiting for you to finally bring some names to the table from Sam's sources.
Because I'm just like, here's the thing: Giannis, Embiid. I love the photoshops, but they're not moving. You know, it's not happening. You
Also,
can hold
one
on.
is a lot better than the other. Yeah,
Sure, but neither of them are moving.
Yeah,
It seems unlikely. I think Embiid maybe in a year and change if Philly keeps going sideways. But
you don't think Giannis in a year in a couple of years too? You don't think Giannis the way
maybe,
that they
but
don't even have a coach? Yeah,
but this summer, no.
Yeah.
That's like my bigger thing. I like if you want to hold on to all your chips because Giannis might ask out in 2024, sure, but it's not helping you right now. You know.
So Pascal Siakam and Cat, you think are real option, like real?
Well, okay. As of today, Siakam's lame duck. So he either signs an extension or Toronto has to deal with the fact that he'll walk in free agency in 12 months. And all the reporting, Mark Stein said it, other people said it, has suggested he's very much on the table. I don't know if he wants to stay in Toronto. I don't know if Toronto is like interested in keeping the whole thing together. We thought they were going to trade him at the deadline. Didn't happen. So I think that's on the table. And then Towns, everyone's kind of aware of the Gobert Cat thing isn't really a long-term thing. I think they traded for Gobert thinking they could just move Cat and recoup what they traded. And so I don't know if he gets moved, but like those are the type of guys who are more realistic than Giannis or Embiid. Right?
So those are the two big moves you're saying, but you're saying those would be considered.
Off top of my head, those are the type of big moves that could potentially be available.
All right. So everyone likes Pascal Siakam, so I'm not even going to really talk about him. Maybe you can, but guys, I would do Karl Anthony Towns in a second. That sounds weird. I would trade for Karl Anthony Towns in a second. In a second. Give me the low voice, low pitched Karl Anthony Towns in a second. The Warriors trading for Karl Anthony Towns, assume it's a poo-poo platter, right? I don't even know why Minnesota would do it, but it's Minnesota. You give him Kuminga back, right? They traded him away. You give him D'Lo back in the form of Jordan Poole, and then you give him a bunch of picks. Whatever. Karl Anthony Towns is not a leader, right? He's not a first option. Hell, he might not even be a second option. But what I watch with him, though, I know he's an elite talent guy. He's kind of like an Andrew Wiggins. He's an elite, and I would argue he might even be more talented. 7 feet tall, right? Just a great shooter. I don't know about greatest big man shooter of all time, but dude shoots 40% on volume from three. You can argue he fouls too much. You can argue he's kind of soft. Jimmy Butler didn't like him. I get all the warts, but if you put him next to Draymond Green and you can play Towns at the 4, you're not asking him to be the small. You're not asking him to be the 5, right? You're not moving Draymond Green away. You're putting him at the 4. You get a scorer. You get a guy next to Steph who can pick and pop. I mean, isn't that easily your second scorer? Like the guy would average 28 points next to Steph pretty easily. And then defensively, you would hope to mask some of those concerns with Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, some of those vets around him. I would do that move in a second, Sam. I just don't know why Minnesota would do it, but that's a big move that I would do. And I feel like Lacob, who loves big moves, I feel like he'd do that too if that were on the table. What do you think?
I think Draymond
might hit him, but yeah.
Well, that's the interesting part. We're gonna have to hear this, which is not my favorite thing.
Oh my.
This is what movies is made of.
This is what movies is made of. 4 months away, I come back 2 free throws. Don't worry about it. I got that.
Don't worry about it.
It's crazy.
So cringe.
I can't listen to it without just cringing. It's so bad. But then I watch him play basketball and I see 40% on 8+ threes a game, and let's be honest, he can score on anyone in the post too. His skill level is absurd. And he can pass. He can play in the Warriors system. To be honest with you, I'm surprised his career never took off the way I thought it would because he's like ridiculously talented and like there's not much he can't do on the court. Right?
Well, I think he's got the Andrew Wiggins thing on him, right? Where people would say Wiggins was soft and he's just not a first option. Wiggins isn't a first option either. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, same with
he's a third, fourth option.
And I think Towns is not a third, fourth, but I think mentally, I think Towns is probably a third, fourth option, right? Like he's just not ever going to be that guy. Is he willing to accept?
I mean, you do bring the Wiggins point makes sense to me because it's same team, and you wonder, God, why would Minnesota trade the Warriors? Did they really want to watch the Warriors win with their future plus the guy who they passed on in the draft? Like, think about that. They passed on Steph twice, and then they drafted Wiggins and Cat back-to-back number ones. They really get traded to the Warriors, and I don't know. Maybe it's a little too pie in the sky.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Because if you could say, I don't know how the money works. I don't even know that, which is why I was fascinated you bringing this up. But you telling me you can put Draymond next to Karl Anthony Towns? That's a very, very solid like defensive pairing. Same with Looney. If you could put Looney next to him, right? Because it just makes life easier. You're not doing the Rudy Gobert thing where Gobert has to play like 40 minutes a game and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, to pull that trade off, like let's be honest, it's going to cost you Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, probably Moses Moody as well, and at least 3 first-round picks. Probably like you're going all in some capacity. And like, when I say 3 picks, I mean, like, 2023, which you can trade draft night, 2026 and 2028, stuff when Steph is 38, 40 years old. Like, that's not a limited amount of inventory you're trading that way. And then you're way over the cap. And I will say, you could probably puts a little pressure on Klay to sign a discount or they let him walk, perhaps. But, that's deal with that in 12 months, right? But yeah, I mean, something like that means you're trading picks that will be conveyed when Steph is no longer on the Warriors in all likelihood. So you're running the risk that, when that stuff conveys, you might be sending a lottery pick and it might suck,
Yeah, I don't care because I would argue that pumps your chances of winning a championship from, next season, 12% to 21%, whatever, arbitrary percentages, but it'd be a nice large bump if you can get a guy. And we're just talking about Karl Anthony Towns, but let's just throw other names out there. Pascal Siakam's out there. People in the chat is throwing out Kristaps Porzingis. I've gotten a few texts about that. I don't know why Porzingis is a name. Kyle Kuzma is a name that's thrown out there. Like, again, I don't know what any of these are possible.
So Porzingis and Kuzma are much harder because they're free agents. So it's a sign-in. The Warriors can't really do sign-in trades because this isn't even a new CBA.
OG another one. OG Anunoby's another one.
OG's a real one. Yeah. So let's talk the Toronto ones. Let me paint the picture. The Toronto ones, I don't know how much they're going to cost, but both those dudes have not signed an extension. And if you want to trade for them, you're praying that they don't sign an extension. So because the closer they get to lame duck status, the more someone like Masai Ujiri's got to be like, all right, I gotta get something. I can't sit waiting for 4 picks when this guy can walk in free agency in 5 months, that type of stuff. So that's kind of the thing. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I do think the Warriors would kick the tires on all those guys. We know they kicked the tires at the deadline on some of those guys.
Real shocker. The OG one was a real shocker to me. I mean, I get why they did it, but like it kind of came out of nowhere. No? Did you think like would you?
I mean, I get why they like them. It's just that they're so quiet. You know what I mean? Like they don't let people know that they are having those conversations. Yeah, it's ultimately good. Shout out Bob.
Would you
moving in
rather have OG
silence.
or Pascal Siakam, given relative same packages?
Siakam. OG is a high-level role player. I think they need a shot creator more than they need a shooter. OG's higher floor, worse ceiling Wiggins. You know what I'm saying? Like, he similar type of player.
Really
Great
is.
defender.
Really is the same, similar to
players. I don't think his highs are as good as Wiggins.
Yeah, worse shooter, much worse shooter. Yeah,
but can really defend, can really fill a stat sheet, and just, not a shot creator. That's his.
No,
it is what it is. He doesn't have the handle. Same way Wiggins and Klay don't. It's not their role.
Oh my God, a Klay Wiggins OG, just three guys just standing around the. Oh my God.
Our guy Jim Park's going to be screaming for pick and rolls every time he sees them making decisions.
By the way, I would love that. I would love that move. I would love that lineup because you're just putting elite defenders next to Steph. I'm all in on that. But I get why Pascal Siakam is the better fit. I mean, he's a guy that can actually score 28 points in a playoff game.
I mean, he's the perfect pick and roll partner for Steph. He's up there. Like he can make the second read. He can create. I love the idea of him and Draymond in a 4-5 situation. Neither of them are centers. They can both switch everything. They're both excellent defenders. I don't know. I'm a big fan of his game. A little, he can get a little mid-range happy. Shoots
a lot. Shoot some bad shots. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard to find 6'9" guys with that kind of ability to create their own shot and create for others. So
I'm with you.
I'm with you. And I think he's, it's the right kind of small ball 4-5 that the Warriors like to play with. So,
and I also think the thing about someone like him is he's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 years old. That is the perfect type of mentality for these players. Pascal Siakam knows he's not going to be a number one ever. He won a championship as the number 2, maybe even the number 3.
He even tried, actually. If in some ways, the last few years he's been a number one. He knows what it is. They play,
and it's not good for him. And it's not good for him, right? He's not a winner as a number one. And I think like a lot of players, humans, have to understand and get humbled that way. I mean, we saw that with Andrew Wiggins, and I think Pascal would be a perfect fit with this team, where he's going to say, "I know the pecking order. Like I know I'd be the number 2 option. I know I'd get my shots. I know defensively, I know what it takes to win."
He's already been champ. He was a champion as a 3rd option. He got a chance to be a 1st option, realizing like he's best as a 2nd, 3rd option on a real contender, which is way beyond the Warriors. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer because it's a basketball fit and a culture fit. Like he's at the right age, right state of his career, and probably is an acceptance with it. And to your point on Karl-Anthony Towns, I always forget he's 27. He's sneakily, he's also there too. Like, it's kind of right around that time, right?
He's getting there. I think he's getting there. Yeah. He's probably getting to the point here.
Zuby brings up the question: Dubs need juice in the front court. Can't go to war in the playoffs with 2 non-scoring. Yeah, that's. Facts. I mean, Siakam, a 3-man rotation of Draymond, Siakam, and Looney. I can live with that. You got one scorer. You got like Draymond, who does everything, and then Looney's kind of a rebounding machine goon. So like you can rotate it so you always got offense and defense together there, and you're not actually giving up too much size when you do that either. So
I guess the thing concerning is, why would Toronto do it? And then you kind of addressed it in the beginning, right? It's just, how long is he going to be a Raptor?
And that's like, I would say this to people who want to email us and talk about this stuff. Look at teams who are moving in a different direction than the Warriors, because that's where the trade's coming. Like I said, like the Embiid type stuff, it's not going to happen. Toronto might be pivoting towards a different direction, potentially realistic. You never know, but potentially, right?
Which is why they tried to get Anunoby. I wonder why they didn't try to get Pascal. I guess Masai was still all in. Toronto was still all in, which is fool's gold. Dude. Just what a joke. What a season.
I mean,
here we go. Oh.
And it's been said, there's been rumors about Siakam and OG in trades for 18 months now. Masai's been doing that thing where he half in, half out, trying to play the mind games, but clearly he hasn't got an offer that's worth his while. So I don't know. That's where they're at right now. We didn't talk about the bigger issue, not the bigger issue, but the other thing, which is Bob Myers. That's the other big issue that the Warriors have to tackle this offseason. Reports are suggesting he's going to take some time. He's not actually doing media day tomorrow because he's at the combine. He's doing his media day in a week. What are your thoughts on Bob Myers? Let me restate this. Do you think it matters if he returns?
Oh, that is the right question. That is the right question, because how much I don't think anybody knows how much power did Bob Myers have at the end of his tenure with the Warriors. A lot of the PR right now is saying Joe Lacob has made him multiple contract offers. He's willing to pay him the money. I don't know if money is the issue. I actually don't think money is the issue at all. I think with Bob Myers, it's one, do I get to do my job the way I want to do my job? Do I get to trade Kuminga if I have to? And is that my decision? Or do I have to beg Joe Lacob to make that happen in a trade for Pascal Siakam? And then number two, I think he's just tired, right? He seems tired. He always sounds tired. I mean, he always sounds like he's crying. Maybe he just doesn't want to work. I don't think if he doesn't come back that he's going to get a job somewhere else. He might just sit in a beach in Bali next to me for a year or two. Why?
Nice.
It does. I mean, he's made a lot more money than I have in his career. Why does he have to work? And maybe that's, I mean, to your point, do you think how much power did he have by the end of his tenure? And did he even make the right moves this season? Shouldn't he have signed a big to get guys more legs? Should he have done a better job? I mean, you can make those arguments. Just him coming back doesn't solve everything.
I think it's overstated how little power he has. I agree with you. The impression I get is he's just burnt out. And look, man, he's been very successful. He might go to the Hall of Fame if he never works again as a GM. He's, nothing negative to say there, but humans get burnt out. You and I have both got burnt out at work. It's not I would never think anything of it. I do wonder if, if a change of voice for the Warriors wouldn't be the best thing in the world sometimes, but also the dynamics, I guess if your question is did Joe make it too hard on him and he didn't have a voice? You think that's changing in Phoenix or the Clippers? You think Steve Ballmer doesn't get involved? Steve Ballmer overruled basketball ops and made them sign Russell Westbrook because the players asked him. Everyone, you think basketball ops wanted Westbrook? No, that was Paul George saying get him. You think Matt Ishbia? Are you watching what he's doing in Phoenix? That dude's on the that's all owners. The thing that makes Bob an amazing GM is he's proven he can manage up.
Yeah. He
can deal with a very demanding, opinionated owner and move them in a good direction. That's life, I'm sorry.
Which is probably why Steph, he's probably on the phone with Bob right now and saying hey, just give me 3 more years, right? Just give me 3 more years. Let's try to make a run at one more title here. And I think Steph is probably the guy.
Because dude, you've worked a long time. It's a unique skill set to be able to deal with very successful, opinionated, difficult people and get everyone on the same page.
And everyone thinks
everyone thinks they're the smartest guy in the room. Steve thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Steve didn't want half the things this team has done because that's just the way that coaches operate. He thinks he knows that. He wouldn't be successful if he wasn't stubborn, right? So it's like one of those things.
You're saying there's a lot more value to Bob outside of just. I see your point. Do you think he's 2 weeks from now? You think he's coming back?
Bro, I'm a legit 50-50. If you want me to make a guess, I'm gonna say yes. But I don't feel good about it. This isn't I don't feel good about it.
And you think it matters a lot more than I do. I think is your point.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Honestly, I don't get the impression that anything's going to change for the Warriors in the short term if he goes away. Like, I don't mean that like in a negative way. I think, look, they're not going to go hire Daryl Morey. They're going to promote Dunleavy. They're going to go like keep things churning internally. They probably should, if you're being honest about it. Like, you don't go make external hires unless it's clear what you have internally doesn't work.
If Steph is done, you make an external hire, right? But
exactly.
Right.
Or if he's exactly. If you start getting guys like Steph being like, I want out of here, that's when it's time to bring the voice from outside in to reshape everything.
Yeah, get some hanging.
Sabo asks, Miles Turner or Maxi Kleber? I think Miles is dog in the paint, and Kleber, I don't know, but he fits the system. I mean, they both would look. They're both
totally
better than anything the Warriors had coming off the bench this year.
Right. Totally different players. So I mean, like Miles Turner would start, and Maxi Kleber would be like a Bielitsa,
Auto,
eighth man type, or Auto, right. Totally different.
Somewhere between.
Obviously, Miles Turner, I would much rather. I mean, he had a really good year this year, Miles Turner. Another guy, you talked about Pascal Siakam in trade rumors the last 18 months. Miles Turner is someone that they extended him, but they extended like they didn't give him like a long. It's like, oh well, he's still going to be in trade rumors.
You're in college when Miles Turner started the trade rumors.
High school, even. How old is he? How old is Miles Turner? It feels like he's been in the league for 15 years. He's probably only like 28, right? If I had to like guess, really, he's 27, dude. It feels like he's been in the league for 10 years. Unbelievable.
Him and John Collins have been in trade rumors for a decade. It's like those two. That's it. You know,
John Collins is not good, so that's something the Warriors should not do. But Miles Turner is a solid.
John Collins from the David Lee school of the highlights and stats are nice, but no. Yes. Shout out our guy Grant Liffman.
Good luck over there, Grant. Good luck, bud.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the way this thing plays out will be interesting. Like, I don't know, gun to my head, I think Bob comes back, and I don't think they make a big move. But you know, I wouldn't be surprised over anything. I guess my question for you is there anything you specifically want this team to do in the offseason?
Okay, so they've got to figure out what the hell is going on with Klay Thompson, because they can't move forward healthily, mentally healthy with Klay Thompson if he's going to – he's got to figure out, obviously, the contract, but two, mentally, who are you trying to be? Are you just trying to chase – you talked about this on the last podcast. Are you just trying to chase the past? Are you just trying to Uncle Rico it? Or are you trying to sacrifice and try to win a championship? Because this season felt a lot like I can still throw a pigskin a quarter mile. I can still do it. And Klay, you can at times.
Against the Detroit Pistons. Against the Atlanta Hawks.
Are you trying to win a championship or not? And I think that's one of the biggest questions this offseason for them to figure out. Sorry.
And I didn't love him basically telling everyone, like, I just want to get back to being an all-star. I appreciate the sentiment, but you watch the Warriors play, he plays really selfish. He might be a 15-point per game guy on a winning team now, and that's valuable. That's hard to do. You cannot find that everywhere. But look, man, do you want to be the 14 to 15 point per guy who's a winning player, or do you want to be the 24, 25 point per guy who gets his stats but is a first round exit? That's what he needs to figure out. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I mean, he's always been selfish in a good and bad way, right? Like he's always been I'm going to chuck this shot coming off the screen with 21 seconds left. I mean, you watch him against OKC, 88% of those shots were freaking terrible shots, but he was just a much better player back then. He could make those shots. He had better legs. He was in better shape. He was better defensively. He was just a better player so that you can live with those shots. But, right, you got to – I don't know. That's a pretty big thing this offseason, man. What if he just says, I want that max or whatever. I want 30 million versus what do you think? What do you think is a reasonable extension?
25,
25 for Klay across 4 years.
I'll put it this way: Andrew Wiggins signed a deal that's paying him 27 to 28 a year. Wiggins' deal to me signals self-awareness. He says, "I'm a third option. I know I can guard anyone." And I know I can score a little bit, but I don't want to be the man. And so he got paid appropriately like a third option at that high 20s number, right? Klay, he's a third option. He's a very good third option. But if your team is paying Klay $50 million, which is what first and second options get now, I don't know how you can build a real team around that. So,
no, and they wouldn't do it. Yeah.
I know that, but that's like my point. He's in the, Jordan, we can argue about his number, but Jordan was 24 years old. He gets a little bit of a bump because potential, he got 30 a year, right? Like guys who are in that range where they can score, but they're not the man. That's kind of the range they're in, that 25 to 30 range. So that's probably where I think Klay lands. He's got one more year in his deal, but I think, the leaks that he wants a max.
Yeah, I don't.
Shout out to his agent.
Yeah, that doesn't matter to me. None of that matters. Like talk to me when it's actually signing time. What you want is never actually get what you want. Yeah, which is why you talked about Jordan Poole that thing. Which is why people are like, oh, trade Klay. It's like trade Klay where? Right. Who the fuck's trading for Klay? $30 million for Jordan Poole, like you said, 23-year-old up and coming. For you can easily
his contract expires when he's 27 years old. Insane. Like you're getting all the upside years.
There is value to Jordan Poole. You can argue that Draymond ruined the season. It was a rough Warrior season. He's coming off the bench. He's coming off the bench. He's starting. It's a shitty roster construction. Like you can, if you're Orlando, you can easily. Sorry, if you're Minnesota, you can easily make that argument. If you're Masai Ujiri, you can say, well, let me put Jordan Poole next to next to what's his name? What's the guy? Scotty Barnes. Right, like maybe we can do that. So, like you can argue that, but with Klay, it's what team is going out there and saying, "All right, let's get Klay." Whoever I know, Portland, is that the only team? I don't know. At that price, right? At that price, like it just doesn't really make sense. I don't know.
It's a fact. So I mean, look, man, it's a big off season. It's gonna be exciting to see how this plays out. I say we leave it here, but it's just It's a good time. Appreciate everyone subscribing. Rate 5 stars. Always have a great evening, guys.
All right.